Wow. It is so wonderful to be here with thousands of my closest friends in Santa Monica. This moment, it is imperative for all of us to do some real soul searching about whether or not we are ready to put some sweat equity on this thing. There is only one candidate, and I mean one, who had the courage in 2016 to lift these issues to a national level, and his name is Bernard Sanders. Just one. Just one. And it's beautiful, family, and I mean this, because I want people to evolve. I want folks to understand that they were on the wrong path and they see another path and they say, I believe. But for some of these folks, I'm just trying to understand, did they believe all along, or do they believe just because they're running for president? I'm just trying to understand that. Senator Bernard Sanders, head to head, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, hell, before he was even elected to office. He's been on the right side of history. A visionary. So we need these other folks to speak on it. And every single candidate, can I just say this, Santa Monica, every single candidate that is running as a Democrat, one way or the other, is singing from the gospel according to Bernard Sanders. Our senator has an anti-endorsement list. Come on, somebody. Come on. There's no other candidate that has that. When you got the multimillionaires and billionaires already saying that they'll take the other 99 of the folks that's running, but not the one. They'll take the other 20-something, but not the one. That should tell you something. Why would we take any of the copies when we got the original? Come on, somebody. I mean, I'm just saying. We got the real thing. So now, the only way, though, that Senator Sanders is going to win, this is real talk right here, because we got folks writing them off. We got folks want to bring up his age. Let me just tell you something. I stopped wearing 3-inch heels to keep up with the brother, okay? But why is it that we speak up against sexism and racism as well? We should, but we're going to allow folks to talk about ageism. Ageism is discrimination, too. It's about your vitality and your vision, what you stand for, what you believe in. The way, sisters and brothers, we gonna win this thing, because as the senator always says, when he wins this office, folks are not just gonna wake up and have an epiphany. As Brother Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We need you and 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 you. We need you. And this is not just about that person in the White House. We got a whole lot of cleaning up to do in this country. He is just a manifestation of what we really have been as a nation, but it doesn't have to be that going forward. And that's why we need a leader that has a vision and that believes in hope, that can lift the masses of the people in this country and all over the world to bring us together, the mosaic of humanity together, to do what is just, to do what is right, and to do what is good. And that is Senator Bernie Sanders.
To a man who stood up for working people all his life? Are you here to listen to someone with a vision for the future of America that is based on human dignity, racial, environmental, and social justice? Let me introduce you to the man I have loved and admired and worked alongside for many, many years, my husband, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Santa Monica. Whoa. You know, I thought that there was an earthquake inside there. You are a loud audience. Are you ready for a political revolution? I'm here tonight to ask of you several important things. Number one, we need your help to win the Democratic primary in California. I think we are going to win in Iowa and New Hampshire. I think we're going to do very, very well in South Carolina and in Nevada. And then we come to California, which is bigger than all of the rest. So I think it is a fair statement to make that the candidate who wins here in California is going to win the Democratic nomination. And with your help, let's do it. And then after we win here in California, and after we win the Democratic primary nationally, then together we are going to have the historical opportunity to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. And together, we will put an end once and for all to the racism, to the sexism, to the homophobia, to the xenophobia, and to the religious bigotry which permeates this administration. Now, Trump thinks that he is going to win re-election by dividing the American people up. Like all demagogues before him, he thinks that he can retain power by getting us to hate each other because the color of our skin is different, because we were born in another country, because our religion might be different, because our sexual orientation might be different. Well, we got some bad news for Donald Trump. We ain't falling for that demagoguery. What this campaign is about is exactly the opposite of what Trump is trying to do. He wants to divide us up. We are bringing people together. And we are bringing people together around a progressive agenda that works for all of us, not just the 1%. So I'm asking for your help to win the nomination and to defeat Donald Trump, but I am asking uniquely of all of the campaigns out there something even more of you. And that is what you know and I know, and why the message of our campaign is us, not me, is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. What this campaign understands is that real change always, always, always takes place from the bottom on up, not from the top on down. So I am going to need your help the day after we get inaugurated. I am going to need the help of tens of millions of people who are prepared to stand up to the greed of Wall Street. We got 6 financial institutions today that have assets of more than $10 trillion. Now, I don't want you to tell anybody, but we're going to break those financial institutions up. We have an insurance industry that last year made over $23 billion in profit. And while their CEOs make huge compensation packages, over 80 million Americans have either no health insurance or they are underinsured. So we've got some bad news for the private insurance industry. Whether they like it or not, this country is going to join the rest of the industrialized world. We are going to pass a Medicare for All single-payer program. I am sick and tired of talking to Americans from California to Maine who simply cannot afford the outrageous high prices of health insurance in this country. I am tired of talking to doctors who tell me that they lose patients because by the time their patients walk into their office, it is too late because they delayed going into the doctor's office because they had no health insurance or they were underinsured. I am tired of talking to families who have suffered bankruptcy because a family member ended up in the hospital with a bill of a few $100,000 that family could not pay. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. The function of a rational health care system is to provide health care to all in a cost-effective way, not to make billions in profits for the insurance industry. Now, let me be very clear. The insurance companies will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to protect their profits. There will be ugly ads on television telling you Bernie Sanders wants to do this, that, and the other thing. But understand, those ads are paid for people whose greed is destroying the lives of millions of Americans. And we got some bad news for the pharmaceutical industry. And that is that at a time, and this is how dysfunctional this healthcare system is. 1 out of 5 Americans today who go to the doctor because they're sick, and the doctor writes out a prescription, 1 out of 5 of those patients cannot afford to fill that prescription. In a couple of days on Sunday, I'm taking a group of folks who are dealing with diabetes, and we're going from Detroit, Michigan to Windsor, Ontario. And the reason we are going to Windsor, Ontario is to allow these folks with diabetes to buy insulin at 1/10 of the price they're paying in the United States. But it is not just insulin. It is drug after drug after drug in which our people are paying by far the highest prices in the world. And people are dying because they cannot afford the medicine they desperately need. So today we say to the pharmaceutical industry, whether you like it or not, we're going to end your greed. And under Medicare for All, no American will be paying more than $200 out of pocket for all the medicine that they need. And we're going to do that because Medicare will finally start negotiating prices with the drug companies. And today, we say to the fossil fuel industry, that that is one way of saying it, not exactly the way I was going to say it. But you know, when we talk about the greed of Wall Street, when we talk about the greed of the insurance companies, when we talk about the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, we also have to talk about the insanity of what's going on with the fossil fuel industry. These people in the fossil fuel industry are not stupid. They understand exactly what they are doing. And what they are doing, according to virtually all of the scientists who have studied this issue, is that if we do not in the next 12 years radically transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, there will be underlined irreparable damage done to our country and countries all over the world. Now, I honestly, honest to God, I do not understand the mentality of the people in the fossil fuel industry who have children, who have grandchildren, who have great-grandchildren. How in God's name can they continue to produce a product that is destroying this planet? Now, I don't have a lot of confidence that they are going to develop a moral sense of decency. I don't have a sense that they will put the future of the planet in front of their short-term profits. But whether they like it or not, we are together going to save this planet. And in the process, we are in this country going to create millions of good-paying jobs, creating an energy-efficient transportation system, making our buildings energy efficient, and moving aggressively to sustainable energies like solar, wind, and geothermal. But all of you know that climate change is not just an American issue. Climate change is a Russian issue. It is a Chinese issue. It is an Italian issue. It's an African issue. It's a Latin American issue. It is a global issue. And let me tell you what I intend to do with your help as President of the United States. And that is, now I don't know if we could do this or not. I don't want to make a false promise, but I do want to tell you what I intend to do. And that is to tell the countries of this world that instead of spending $1.5 trillion every single year on weapons of destruction designed to kill other people, maybe we should combine forces and use those resources to combat our common enemy, which is climate change. Now, I want you to think big. Think about a world in which young people all over this planet are working together in trying to save the planet for future generations. But our challenge is not just insurance and health care. It's not just the high cost of prescription drugs. It is not just the impending disaster we face on this planet because of climate change. We have also got to have the courage to do what the media will not do, what politicians in Congress will not do, and understand that in a very significant way, this country is moving toward an oligarchic form of society. And I'll tell you what oligarchy is about. What oligarchy is about, and you won't see it on CBS or NBC or ABC tonight. But what oligarchy is about is 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half, and in America tonight, 500,000 people will be sleeping out on the streets. The time is long overdue for us to get our priorities right. And our priorities are an economy and a government that works for all of us, and not just the 1%. And when we talk about an economy that works for all, we talk about a revolution in education. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet we have a child care system which is an absolute embarrassment. All over this country, working families are unable to find good quality, affordable child care, and child care workers are paid starvation wages for the important work they do. So I say to the politicians out there who give speeches about how much they love America, if you love America, you love the children of America. And that means not only creating an affordable, quality, universal child care system, it means putting billions into our public educational system. It means making sure that our teachers receive the compensation that they deserve. It means making sure that distressed communities, often African American and Latino communities, get the support they need to educate their kids. And I'll tell you what else an educational revolution means. It means that today we have got to understand that free public education does not simply mean K through 12. We have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And I'll tell you what the political revolution is about. 4 years ago, when I came to California and I talked about it, it seemed like a wild and radical idea. Well, guess what? All over this country, state after state, city after city, there is a movement to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And we've got to do something else. Got to do something else. And that is, we have got to cancel student debt in America. From coast to coast, young people were told, go out and get an education, and you're going to go out and get a good job. Well, it turned out not to be that case. Turned out that young people left school $50,000, $100,000 in debt. If you went to graduate school, $200,000, $300,000 in debt. And it turns out that the decent paying jobs were not necessarily there. I am tired of hearing from young people who say, Bernie, I can't get married and have kids because I have this oppressive student debt weighing me down. Can't go out and get a home, can't go out and get a car. If this country could bail out the crooks on Wall Street, if Trump and his friends could give $1.5 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and private corporations, you know what? We can cancel student debt in this country. Four years ago, when I came to California, I made the very radical suggestion that if somebody worked 40 hours a week, that person should not live in poverty. And I made the point that all over this country, we had people working for starvation wages, $8, $9, $10 an hour. And I made the point that we must raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage, at least $15 an hour. Well, 4 years ago, that was a radical idea. But because of very courageous working people, the Fight for 15, people in the fast food industry who stood up, and they went before the American people, and they said, we cannot make it on $9, $10, $11 an hour. We can't feed our families. We can't pay the rent. And then consciousness in this country began to change. And here in California and all over this country, we see state after state raising that minimum wage to $15 an hour. And 2 weeks ago, the United States House of Representatives voted to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, the bill passed the House, and my message to Mitch McConnell you know who Mitch McConnell is. All right. And my message to McConnell is, if you want to explain to the people of your own state, Kentucky, which is a poor state, why you think they should be working in Kentucky for $8 or $9 an hour, you can do that. You can vote against the $15 an hour minimum wage bill. But don't be a coward. Have the guts to bring that bill to the floor of the United States Senate. And if you bring that bill to the floor, you know what? I think the American people all over this country will make it clear that we're going to end 7.25 starvation wages, that we will raise that minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour. Four years ago, I came to California and I said, we have a criminal justice system which is racist and broken. That instead of building more jails, we should spend our money on job training and education for our young people. And I said then that we should end the disastrous war on drugs. Well, 4 years ago, that appeared to be a radical idea. Guess what? Ain't so radical today. As many of you know, here in California, because California, among many other states, including Vermont, has legalized the possession of marijuana. But we have a lot further to go. And that means we have to deal with the reality today that there are hundreds of thousands of Americans in jail tonight for the crime of being poor and not being able to afford cash bail. And together we are going to end cash bail in America. And together, we are going to end the outrage of having prisons and detention centers in America owned by private corporations. This is the wealthiest country on earth. We should not and will not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. We're going to end mass incarceration. Now, Donald Trump is a pathological liar. He is a phony and a fraud. But one of the ugliest things that he is doing is demonizing millions and millions of undocumented people in this country. And just the other day, I talked to some teachers in LA, and they were telling me that they have kids in their classrooms who are dealing with incredible stress and anxiety because these kids are worried that when they get home from school, their mom or their dad might not be there and may be deported. So we say to Donald Trump, stop the demonization of people. Stop the racism, stop the xenophobia. And together we are going to finally pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship for the undocumented. We are going to restore legal protection for the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. And we will develop a humane asylum program at the border. America is not about snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. America is not about criminalizing a mother and daughter who walk 1,000 miles to escape violence and poverty. And I'll tell you what America is also not about. America is not about politicians telling women what they can do with their bodies. You know, I get amazed by the hypocrisy of my Republican colleagues who every day get up on the floor of the Senate and they say, we believe in small government. We believe in getting, you've all heard that, right? Getting government out of the lives of the Americans. Do what you want to do. It's your life, except if you are a woman who wants to control her own body. So let me tell you where I think we are as a nation politically. It goes without saying that we have got to do everything that we can to defeat Donald Trump. That goes without saying. But we have got to do more than that. We have got to take a deep breath and understand something that we don't talk about very much as a nation. And that is, what are the economic rights of human beings? What are we entitled to as human beings? You know, way back in 1944, Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave a speech. And what he said is, you know, we got a lot of political freedoms in America, freedom of religion, freedom of to vote, freedom of assembly, and all that, the Bill of Rights. But what we don't have, this is back in 1944, are fundamental economic rights. And what this campaign is about is redefining what human rights are in America. So let me be as clear as I can be. In this country, it must be a human right for all of our people to have access to a decent paying job. And God knows there is enough work to do rebuilding our infrastructure, transforming our energy system, taking care of our elderly, taking care of our kids, and having the best education system in the world. A lot of work there. It is a human right to have health care and go to the doctor when you need to go to the doctor. It is a human right to have quality education and be able to get all the education you need regardless of your income. And here in California and all over this country, it is a human right to have affordable housing. We are going to end the disgrace. You know, one of the things that bothers me is we have gotten used to the fact that here in LA or San Francisco or Burlington, Vermont, that we have people sleeping out on the streets. This is America. We must never, never accept homelessness as a normal. And that is why together we will build the millions of units of affordable housing this country desperately needs. Toxic water does not just exist in Flint, Michigan. Toxic water exists in California, it exists in Vermont, and it exists all over this country. We are going to rebuild our infrastructure so that every American who turns on that faucet knows that the water he or she drinks is clean and healthy. And when our people get old and seek retirement, we are going to do exactly the opposite of what Republicans want. They want to cut Social Security. we are going to expand Social Security benefits. So our job as a people is to think outside of the box, not accept what the media tells you is reality. You know what reality is. You know what we can do as a country. This is the wealthiest country in the world. We should not have 40 million people living in poverty. We should not have more income and wealth inequality than at any time since the 1920s. So, brothers and sisters, what we are engaged in is not just a political campaign. We are engaged in a political revolution. And that revolution is taking on the incredibly powerful corporate interests that, to a very significant degree, control the economic and political life of this country. And I'm talking about Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military-industrial complex. Now, it is not going to be easy, and I don't want to mislead you for a second. It is not going to be easy to take on these powerful special interests. They own the media. They own much of our economy. All right? But at the end of the day, the NRA too, you're right. It's another powerful special interest. But at the end of the day, and this is the main point that I want to make to you, if we have the courage to think big, and if we have the courage to envisage the kind of nation that we want to become, a nation where we have eliminated poverty, a nation where all people have the health care they need as a human right, a nation in which all people can get the education they need, a nation in which we are leading the world in fighting climate change, a nation in which we're not throwing people into jail but getting them decent jobs, a nation in which we're not demonizing immigrants but establishing a path towards citizenship, a nation which finally addresses the institutional racism which is so rampant in America. This is not utopian dreaming. This is not utopian dreaming. At the end of the day, the 1%, and I deal with them every day, they are enormously powerful. They influence what goes on television. They own the TV. They own the newspapers. All right? They own our economy. They own our political system with massive campaign contributions. But at the end of the day, the 1% is 1%. We are 99%. And if we stand up and do not allow Trump and his friends to divide us up, if we keep our eyes on the prize of creating the kind of humane society we can become, if we are prepared to get deeply involved in the political process, if we are prepared to tell our friends and neighbors that we're tired of hearing them complain, that they have got to get involved in the political process. Brothers and sisters, if we do all of that, we can create an extraordinary country that the whole world will be looking to for leadership. Thank you all very much.
On his